Muses of Mythology is a spoiler-heavy podcast.
That's an understatement.
We're going to discuss not just the events of this book, but the Rhineverse as a whole, and really anything that we feel is relevant. You can find full spoiler warnings in the show notes. Let me pull up the spreadsheet to remember what we're doing next. Welcome to Muses of Mythology, a podcast where we explore how ancient myths become part of modern pop culture through the lens of Rick Riordan's The Heroes of Olympus. This is story 128, The Roman Repaint. I'm your co-host and podcasting muse, Darien Smartt. Joining me is my co-host and brother, DJ.
How's everybody doing today? I'm DJ the Muse, and I've been trying to think about what I've been playing. I just played a new prologue of Pax Autocratica. It's a demo.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Okay.
It's an automation resource gathering game, but with a roguelike element that I'm kind of into.
All right. Promising.
Roguelike FPS element, I should say.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're
Yes,
being very
different.
specific and clear on that, because I know what that means, obviously.
Yeah.
Let's muse around the garden for a moment. Okay, DJ. We've had a minor blip in our scheduling
Just a touch.
because my computer decided it was going to protest existence for a
Just
brief period of time. And then that happened to get resolved right around the time we did our interview with Sean.
Yep.
Discussing Atlantis through time. I hope you all enjoyed that. That was
a
super
good time.
fun.
I had fun with that one.
That was really a really cool opportunity. Appreciate Crosscode Books from reaching out and connecting us.
Yeah.
So hope you all like that. I just like having all the data points to demonstrate Atlantis is not a thing. Please stop.
It's never been a thing.
It can be a
It's
fun
fun.
story trope for sure, but let's stop with the whole we
It's
need to
real.
find it. Because I even changed my joke for the title of the episode was going to be we quote find Atlantis, but then I decided I didn't want to do that. So the episode was called Our Atlantean Beach Holiday,
That's great.
as a reference to a conversation point within the episode.
Yeah.
Which are a lot of. So that is also why this episode so the thing about episode titles is I usually come up with them while editing.
Uh-huh.
That's why when we do the actual recording of the episode, I just say the topic.
Yeah.
Unless I know 100% what I'm calling it, like I do for this episode,
Yeah.
the Roman Repaint.
Because there was a Roman repaint
Because
of
it's-
the Greek mythology.
Because that is what this episode is setting out to establish at the most 1,000-foot surface level. We called it our charcuterie board, kind of like that. There are way more in-depths, way more knowledgeable folks who have talked about this topic at great length. But I wanted, just for the sake of our show, to set this as a foundation starting point, much like we did when we did the Egyptian stuff, getting a timeline. That just kind of felt good.
Yeah.
So, kicking off, DJ, do you remember when you first learned, hey, how come Greek and Rome mythology is the same?
When I first learned it,
I guess kind of what do you know about it? Do you have memories of learning it in school?
yeah, we did actually there was a project. Sorry.
Project?
There was a school project about the differences between Greek, Roman, and Egyptian broadly.
Nice,
right?
okay.
And
One of those things is really not like the others.
I got sidelined. I say sidelined, but I really like it. I got actually the aspect of their religion, so I got to talk about the mythology.
Oh, excellent. That's perfect.
Some people got rulers and other stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
So it was and so I got to do a little bit of that. And I really was just dude, this is all kind of broadly the same. What are we doing here?
Yep, for Greek and
We
Roman.
just changed some titles, added some shit, and gave it a little spice, I suppose. But
Largely, yeah. So I wanted to kind of, again, bare bones. Hey, why did this happen?
mm-hmm.
Why did this happen here, but not
Really
anywhere else to this extent? We talk a lot about this goddess was probably from a Proto-Indo-European, those kind of vibes. Oh,
but
this
it's always kind of
distantly
maybe
related to
sort
this
of,
other. Yeah,
kinda,
right.
Right. It's instead of there's just one-to-ones
Yes.
on every single thing in
Mhm.
Roman mythology and Greek mythology.
So yeah. So to start, we have to acknowledge that Greek religion and culture and art and philosophy and
Yep.
all of that influenced Rome from its very earliest
Yes.
days. By the time Rome was founded in like the 8th century BCE, Greece had been around for a long time and had colonies in Italy and Sicily.
Yeah.
So these countries, these cultures interacted with each other on the regular, right? And then after the Macedonian Wars, those Greek colonies became part of the Roman Empire. And as we get into this idea, so obviously we're getting Greek stuff influencing Roman idea and thought and things like that. Like their neighbors, that's just kind of what's going to happen. But the founding myths of Rome
Are all very similar.
were intentionally tied to Greek heroic legend. DJ, what do you know about the myth? Like, how do we get Rome?
Aeneas.
Yes, actually, I thought you were going to say Romulus and Remus, and I'd say yes, but before that,
No,
but you're
because
right.
we did the opera on the Aeneas.
Damn,
So
DJ,
it
I
was
also
in
was
the
going to
head.
mention that. Yeah.
So it's on like the tip. It was like, yeah, this guy, he went and founded Rome.
Oh, yeah, exactly. DJ, do you know where Aeneas came from?
Troy.
Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah.
So here's another question. DJ,
I pay attention.
You do pay
to things.
attention. Especially things we talked about very, very recently in the car this past week. Happenstances before I even did the research for this episode. Okay, then.
Granted, I brought it up in that conversation, so it's always.
So
I
you do
think
know.
about
You're
it.
locked in. You just. This is one of those things. DJ's Roman Empire is just kind of thinking about Aeneas.
And sometimes.
Okay, so then Aeneas is from Troy. Is Aeneas in the Iliad?
I don't think so. No.
He is.
Oh.
But of course, with the way Aeneas is portrayed now as being such an important piece of like Rome, that's a totally understandable conclusion to make. I actually had to double check. Is this motherfucker even actually in the Iliad, or is he a literal
Is he just like
OC
is he
they
like a-
invented?
Who fucking cares about this character ass mention
Well,
of Aeneas?
It's weird, right? Because I kind of thought that I was like, okay, because the premise of Aeneas is he is one of the ancient he's not a founder of Rome.
Okay.
He is a progenitor of the founders of Rome.
Oh, yes.
In the legend, his descendants are Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, right?
Okay.
And we'll get way more into Romulus and Remus later in the season. But the thing about Aeneas is I was, again, like I said, kind of surprised to find out that he is mentioned in the Iliad.
Mm-hmm.
He is a minor character, to be sure, but he is mentioned on more than one occasion. Aeneas is the son of Aphrodite, and he's actually mentioned in one of like the Homeric hymn to Aphrodite is his story. And his father is King Priam's second cousin. And King Priam was king of Troy during the events of the Iliad and the Trojan War. So he is a prince of Troy, but like third cousin to like Hector, right? The prince of Troy, the heir to Troy.
You'd have to go through a lot of family members
There's
to
a
become
lot.
king.
Yeah. So it's like he's royal, but it is like a side lesser royal branch, but still nobility. And this guy, despite being a minor character, gets saved by 3 different gods who are on opposing sides.
That's crazy.
He is saved by Aphrodite and Apollo, and he is saved by Poseidon, who rescues him from Achilles personally.
So, okay. This guy does seem fated to go on to do something.
Yes, that is exactly it.
What the fuck?
When Poseidon saves him, obviously Aphrodite rescues him. It's her son. Like, she saves him from Diomedes. And Apollo is, on the side of the Trojans, so he saves some of the Trojan princes.
Yeah.
But Poseidon's not really on their side. Poseidon's still pissed that Troy never paid him for building that goddamn wall, right?
Okay.
So, but he also goes out of his way to save Aeneas from Achilles. And when he does, Poseidon acknowledges that this prince, who is like of a minor branch of the royal family, is destined to go on to like be of great lineage of his own.
That's crazy.
I know.
That's so nuts.
So, but exactly what that is
is not specified.
It's not specified, and it would go unrealized. Like, there is not... Aeneas is attested in Greek texts in that Homeric hymn to Aphrodite and in the Iliad. But there isn't another text that outlines exactly what it is that Aeneas is supposed to have gone on to do.
Okay.
Until the Romans got their hands on him. In the 2nd century BC, Cato the Elder wrote Origins, which cited Aeneas as the ancestor of Rome's first legendary king, Romulus.
Outstanding.
Now, this text has been lost to time. We just know it exists because other texts reference it, right? It's one of those things. So we don't know exactly how Cato claimed a prince of a fallen city lived on to be the progenitor of Rome. And that's okay, because around 30 BCE, the best-known version of Aeneas' story, the Aeneid, was penned by Virgil, personal enemy of our friend Emily from Monster Donut.
Does not like this man.
Will fight him on sites. So Virgil actually goes and in detail describes Aeneas and his father fleeing Troy. And him and their crew are one of the few, like, lone free survivors of the once great city. Yeah. Like, after the Trojan War, everyone was either killed or taken into slavery, right? Aeneas and his crew were the only Trojans left free. And then Aeneas goes through a series of adventures, including an incident we discussed at great length on a Remyth episode when we discussed the opera Dido and Aeneas. Yep. And ultimately, Aeneas ends up in Italy, in the city of Latium. And this is where Virgil's narrative ends suddenly. Like, the war has been declared on Aeneas, and it just ends, right? Yep. So, but hey, that's okay again, because other Roman poets and writers would pick up this tale, including Ovid, who is not a hack. In his Metamorphosis, Ovid describes Aeneas as marrying a Latin princess, Lavinia, and founding the city of Lavinium, which he named after his new wife. After Aeneas' death, his mother Venus, because now Romans are telling the story, so she's Venus, convinces Jupiter to make her son immortal. And so the Roman historian Livy identifies the deified Aeneas as the god Jupiter Indiges, which I imagine is where we get, like, indigenous, like, original. So Jupiter Indiges. And that's crazy. Right? And both Livy and Ovid would cite Aeneas as an ancestor to Romulus and Remus, which means that the Roman people were essentially the cultural inheritors of the great city of Troy. Because I don't remember if we talked about this in the Iliad episode, because even though, like, what we know about Troy casually is it fell in this war. Yeah. But that was shocking. Like, Troy was a great city built by gods. Right? And it took an intense 10-year war and direct meddling from gods to result in its fall. So being the, like, cultural inheritors of this legendary civilization isn't like, oh, you're just on the losing side. Like, it's not that. It's the idea of greatness. Now, to be clear, that tales of the founding of Lavinium and the story of Romulus and Remus, like, those certainly existed separate and on their own in other traditions. Okay. But Roman poets and historians made an intentional choice to craft these stories of Rome onto an existing text. And this figure from the Iliad, who, as you pointed out, DJ, like, very clearly, this guy is meant to do something great.
Being saved from gods?
Or
being saved by gods? Is crazy.
And from demigods, because he's, like, Diomedes is a son of Ares, who almost kills him. And Achilles is the son of Thetis, who almost kills him. So, granted, I mean, obviously, Aeneas is a demigod, too. So there is clearly... There was room. And attaching your founding myths onto this, like, established character who was, like, clearly stated to have some great destiny lends into this idea, very intentionally, that Rome is destined to exist. Happen. Yes. that the founder's own ancestor had been personally saved by the gods, escaped the fall of an entire city and people, so he could marry a Latin princess, and their descendants would found Rome. And a story like that kind of just justifies everything Rome could ever do.
Yeah.
Rome and her people are woven into the fabric of fate itself. Rome is more special and more important than anywhere else. And that's important to acknowledge. I think the at a glance you might be like, well, Darien, that doesn't have anything to do with Zeus and Jupiter or Aphrodite and Venus being the same figures.
But it does. It's the same stories that is the founding of Rome.
Yeah.
Like, they're the same. These figures protected the founder of Rome, so clearly these figures are here.
Exactly.
Are still around.
Exactly. Yeah. And it also, I think, kind of demonstrates the motivation that would come from, or the motivation behind these kind of narrative choices.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know Romulus and Remus, they're twins, and they were nursed by the wolf Lupa, and they grew up and they founded Rome, right? That's all well and good, and there's like miraculousness and divinity woven into that. But when you attach it to, but you remember Troy? You remember how Troy was so great and so awesome, and this one guy the gods saved on multiple occasions? That guy is ours too.
Yeah.
Right? The nature of the way Rome as a kingdom, and then a republic, and then an empire crafted their cultural narrative is essential to understanding why we have gods that are Greek and Roman in such overlap, right? Like, it didn't happen by accident. This was so deeply intentional, right? And we have poets telling these stories, and then we have like the Roman leaders preserving and encouraging these tales, right? Now, to be like clear, this isn't the only example of someone taking like, I want to elevate my own culture's prestige. I want to tie it to a great culture from days gone by. Like, we saw Snorri Sturluson would pull this trick about 1,000 years later when he claimed that the Norse gods were actually figures from the Trojan War.
Heck yeah.
Now, if I had a nickel, and honestly, I doubt it only happened twice with Troy.
No.
I just don't know other examples off the top of my head. And so, those who were responsible for shaping the story traditions of Rome had no qualms about adapting foreign tales into their narratives.
Mm-hmm. Those
tales just now had to serve Roman ideas. I mentioned, like, do you remember when you first, like, really kind of learned about it? And I love that you have, like, a very specific story of that project. Like, that's excellent. Because I also remember vaguely in, like, 6th grade social studies, like, learning mythology and things like that, and being told, oh, yeah, like, the Greek and Roman gods were extremely similar, right? And this idea that, I don't know if that's just a conclusion drawn or was directly said, that the idea was that Rome kind of just took the Greek gods and slapped new names on them, right? We've all seen the bit about Rome just copying Greek's homework and changing it just a bit so, you know, not to get caught. And then I'm even calling this episode like the Roman repaint. As if we just took a statue of Zeus and we painted him purple and we just, you know, call him Jupiter.
Yes.
But honestly, that is really a kind of child's imagining or simplification of a very complex exchange of, like, a very complex cultural exchange and adoption that spread over the length of an empire, right? So, by and large, and this is the most important thing to understand, the Roman deities, lots of them, existed separate from and before Greek influence.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is Rome didn't go over, grab Jupiter, or grab Zeus, and then call him Jupiter. They already had Jupiter.
Uh-huh.
And then they saw Zeus and was like, no, but that's our guy too.
Ah.
So the earliest known Roman pantheon featured the deities Jupiter, Janus, Vesta, Mars, and Quirinus. So we know Jupiter, who is the sky god and king of the pantheon.
Mm-hmm.
We know Janus. Janus, thank you. Well, it's a J Jupiter. Why is J
I don't
Janus?
I don't know. That's just how he says it in Smite. That's how Janus himself says it in Smite.
In Smite, it is inside. And I didn't look it up to see because I heard Janus in my head too, but I was like, no, because if it's J Jupiter, why would it not?
Yeah, I have no
J
idea.
Janus?
Maybe
Janus.
it's
just sound better.
Maybe
Janus.
written in Latin, it's different. Maybe it's just like the same kind of very similar symbols.
Yeah, that. Okay.
Because you got like Bjorn. Right?
Okay, but that's so different.
I know it's a different area.
So
but
different.
Like, where is that J coming from, right?
That's us using a character using J to replace a character for one that
okay, and that's what I'm saying is happening.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I don't know. So okay, here's what I learned: that this figure, Janus, whatever one you prefer, he began as an ancient king of Latium. That same city that Aeneas ended up at when he first got to Italy.
We love to see that.
So this is before Aeneas rolled up, but he was an ancient king of Latium who became the god of beginnings and passageways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that would make this figure, this ancient king, another ancestor of Romulus, but this time through Aeneas's wife, Lavinia, because that's where she comes from.
We love to hear that.
Right. So real quick, let's take a moment to
acknowledge the family tree.
Well, point at how baffling it is that not only did Rick Riordan put a Rome exclusive god in the Percy Jackson books.
Yeah, that's right.
But he picked one of the oldest exclusively Roman deities who was like a progenitor of Rome itself.
Outstanding. It's crazy.
Absolutely wild.
Why? Like, what's going on here, bro? What the heck?
It is absolutely Rick Riordan. At the time he was writing Battle of the Labyrinth, I think, assuming that because a lot of Greek gods were also Roman, therefore the Roman gods must have also been Greek.
But they also have different names, all except for Apollo, I'm pretty sure, right?
Lots of them do. Yeah, almost all of them do. I'll talk about Apollo later. Not in this episode. I was looking at my notes and I'm like, I can't dig into this.
Apollo faking it on the island with Artemis being like, oh my head, and he doesn't have it at all.
Yeah, it's like we know you're like the one this is not happening.
But he's like there to comfort his sister. So.
Right. He's also hiding from Zeus because he's in a lot of fucking trouble. So yeah, Richard, that was a crazy choice that you made. And then also I've never acknowledged.
Even what the fuck?
In the text, like even Annabeth mentioning, like, yeah, there are gods that were only Roman. Like Janus is like, yeah, you met him. So why are we fucking shocked to find out that
you even brought back the fact that you met him in another book previously?
It was kind of wild. So that's Janus. Now I want to talk a little about Vesta, this early version of this goddess. So tradition said that Vesta, who's the goddess of home and the Roman people, was first worshipped in Lavinium by Aeneas and the Trojan refugees. Nice. So another really ancient goddess of Rome. And then I mentioned Mars and Quirinus. Scholars believe that at the time of this earliest pantheon, Mars was actually an agriculture god, an agriculture god.
Nice.
And it was Quirinus who was their god of war. And of the 5 members of this pantheon, 3 of them would eventually come to be identified with Greek counterparts. So we'd have Vesta, who would be identified with Hestia, Jupiter, Zeus, and Mars, and Ares. Janus and Quirinus apparently never had counterparts of their own. I don't really know why. It might be because, for Quirinus at least, Quirinus, he kind of faded from popularity really early on. Like this is like in the earliest ones. And while these other deities really hung around, like he didn't. And his position in this like central pantheon would get replaced by other deities in a relatively short span of time in comparison to how long Rome lasted, right? And meanwhile, it's perhaps Janus also didn't because he was once a guy. Like if part of this figure's story is that he was once a king of
and that was also part of Greek. Yeah.
Yeah, he maybe wouldn't.
It would undercut it a little bit.
Right. He can't also be from Greece. He's exclusively ours. Yeah. So, like I said, like Aquinas himself, he would be just kind of fall out of favor as other gods join the pantheon, specifically as a result of Rome conquering their neighbors and drawing their gods into the fold. Deities like Juno, Venus, Minerva, and Diane are all examples of such deities who were adopted through conquest.
They just get it. It was like, oh yeah, we got those guys. Their names are Diane.
Well, kind of. Sometimes. It's like the... So the reason this happened, right, is because it seems like it was not Roman policy to just deny that gods existed.
Yeah.
Right? So they roll up into a new place and they conquer it. And they just decide...
We call it something else.
Well, not always. They just decide, hey, well, you have local gods here that you're worshiping? Cool. Those are part of our pantheon too. So you can keep worshiping your local gods. You're just also going to worship our gods. So they conquer a place where there is a goddess of fertility and wilderness in her name. She's called Diane. And they're saying, great, that's awesome. You can worship Diane. And also you're going to have to worship Jupiter. And also we just picked up this other goddess, Juno, and you're going to add Juno to your festival. And we have a lot of festivals. So you're going to have to do that too. So actually a chunk of the time we were getting new gods because they were just already being worshipped in the places that Rome decided, we want these land, we want this resource, we want this territory, and we'll take your gods while we're here.
That's neat.
Right? And there are probably a couple reasons why Rome did it. Like, one, it was probably easier to control this newly... they're not necessarily Roman because there were definitely strict rules about who got to be Roman, but you're part of
this new territory.
This new territory, if you're not also fighting the people's religious practices, right? It's a little easier to do that.
It's fine. Just also, we rule you, so also do this shit.
Yeah.
These are our rules that we're imposing on you. You can still do all your shit. We're not going to stop that.
Yeah, but you also just have to do our stuff in addition to that. Yeah. It's similar, not quite. Actually, there's a fundamental difference between, like, there's a lot of pagan celebration in Christmas traditions, and that is because early Christianity would just end up in pagan places and be like, okay, well, you can still have your midwinter festival, but it has to be in our name, our god now, not whatever the shit you're doing. So you have to get rid of your stuff. If you want to keep having a party, that's great. Oh, you really like this tree? That's fine, but that tree is for Jesus now. Yeah. So
put an angel up there.
Right. So kind of like that, except we didn't replace Diane with, like, some Vesta.
Name. Yeah.
They just said, okay, well, you can keep Diane, and we are actually also going to take Diane. And actually, this goddess is going to be super popular with everybody, so she's just going to become part of our major pantheon, not just a local goddess, right?
She's going to become the goddess of moon as well. So
kind of, yeah. So it's also important to acknowledge, like, the reason I would reckon, not an expert, but the reason I would reckon that Rome wasn't rolling up and being like, your gods aren't real, is because why not? Like, they were polytheistic.
We already have a bunch of gods. Why shouldn't theirs also be real?
Local gods or gods of rivers. Like, why not? And so, when that is the core belief, it makes actually a lot more sense to curry favor with as many divine forces as possible. We mean a new god?
And hey, they were one of the longest lasting empires of all fucking time.
So maybe they were onto something. So that is actually a big chunk of the reason of where most of these gods, like, kind of were coming from. They were just being adopted by other practices and were still a unique, separate entity. They were just now part of our club. But there are also instances, this is the big one for us, where the foreign god was interpreted to be an established Roman deity, and they were just being called the wrong name by these silly foreigners. Yeah. Right? I don't know why Juno was snagged from the Etruscans and then later connected with Hera, rather than Hera also just being snagged. And now we have Hera and Juno as separate deities. I don't know for sure, based on the research I was able to do, why sometimes we just take a god and now they're part of our club, and why sometimes we just put a new name tag on the god. I think if, again, I were to guess it could be part of there are similarities here with the functions of these deities, right? Like, we don't need another goddess of childbirth. We actually already have a pretty prominent goddess of childbirth, so we're not going to yank yours. But also, it could be Rome didn't conquer all of Greece. They were taking these colonies after the Macedonian War. Yeah, for sure. But they didn't roll up and completely take over Greece like they did. So there are still Greek gods being worshipped. You can't just make the Greeks also now worship your Roman gods like you can make these other people do when you've conquered their land. So to circle that square, maybe it was, again, the best interest of Rome to point over there at all those gods and say, no, but like those are actually our gods. They're just also worshiping our gods. Like, all of the worship they're doing there, that's actually to our gods, actually. And so you have Romans going, oh, your god king is Zeus? Yeah, that's actually just our guy. That's Jupiter.
Yeah, it's the very same.
Yeah, and so when recording stories of this so-called Zeus, Roman poets would, of course, use the deity's correct name. That did make me think, why did Heracles not become Genocles and instead Hercules? And I don't know, maybe it had something to do with the way the Latin language works. I just...
it was actually, everybody actually knew it as Heracles. But just the way that we write it now in English, it looks like Hercules.
Well, he was Hercules. Like, they did change this, because also, like, we think about the stories of, like, Hercules and, like, all of his, like, mortal heroics. Mm-hmm. That's true, that's the big one. But he also became a deity afterwards. He was also worshipped in Greece after his death. So when they roll up, the Romans start to interact, they kind of do just, like, take Hercules. But now he's Heracles. No, I swapped it.
They took Heracles. Yeah. Now he's Hercules.
Yeah, and because we don't worship Hera, so we're just going to tweak the name a little bit. And I don't know why it's not Genocles. I legitimately don't know why that is. Maybe they just picked him up in a different order. I can't
Genocles sounds ridiculous, Darien.
You know what? That's so goofy. You're right. That's my bad. So, now, obviously, as we've already discussed, this did not happen to every Roman deity. But it did happen to the major ones, right? Those the core pantheons.
Yeah, the Olympians.
The Olympians.
All except for Apollo.
Yeah, like, by the time we get, like, later on and more established, we have, like, Quirinus, who was replaced by, like, Venus, Minerva, Juno, Diane, Vulcan, Neptune, right?
Yeah.
These major gods who, when they were identified with, like, overlap with Greek ones, those are why there are some of the big gods that seem to stand out more and give us the impression that this was more common than perhaps it really was, to an extent. I would also propose that this was maybe another way in narrative to legitimize Rome as a power, right? We have always been destined to be here. Even foreigners have been worshiping our gods all this time. Yeah. And to be clear, another thing is important. Rome didn't just do this with Greece. Like, there were
others hanging around.
Yeah. They would encounter other places and also be like, oh, that's just our guy. Like, in their encounters with the early Germanic people who would, like, become the Norse culture, Roman historians identified their war god Tyr with Ares. No, Mars. God damn it. And the Celtic gods Lugus and Solus were identified with Mercury and Minerva, respectively, right? So this didn't just happen with the Greeks. But God's damned, the Greeks had so much writing and poetry about their
just
deities.
Makes it so much easier.
There was just so much to work. All of the theater, the dramas, there was just a lot to work with. And it just made fleshing out the world building really easy. This practice is why the Greek and Roman pantheons share so many stories, right? And the Greek influence would also kind of result in Rome reworking connections in between their own gods. Like, if Zeus is actually Jupiter being called by the wrong name, And then Jupiter must also be the brother of the ocean, Neptune, and then the underworld god, Pluto.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that connection between these maybe separate deities came about because we established that where's Zeus? Or here, this is Jupiter. And they have all these stories about our guy Jupiter. So here's all this information about our guy Jupiter.
Yeah.
Right? And in time, that connection would bounce back the other way. The preservation of like the tales of Ovid and other Roman historians, plus the Renaissance obsession with like the Latin language and rediscovering these like old classic civilizations, would lead to some Roman original tales coming to be considered canon elements of their Greek counterparts. For example, the story of Arachne. We will get into Arachne obviously later this season, so I'm not going to give it to you here. But it comes from Ovid's Metamorphosis, right? And it describes a young woman's ill-fated competition with the goddess Minerva. Since the Romans identified Athena with Minerva, many Greek tales of the goddess would be given to Minerva as well, right? So Minerva aiding Odysseus, Minerva aiding... what the fuck else did I think? Minerva and finding like the city against Neptune, right? Like those stories of Athena became Minerva's. So this story of Minerva and Arachne eventually became Athena as the goddess who cursed the Weaver woman. It's possible that Ovid was recording an account of a Greek tale, but as I understand it, there are currently no known Greek Greek records of Arachne. This story is fundamentally Roman, but it is considered a foundational text for Athena the goddess, even though she's not Minerva.
Is Arachne? Wait, did you just say that Arachne is not really Greek?
Yeah. This is a Roman story.
That's fucking crazy because she's Greek in Smite. She's a Greek god in Smite.
Because
I understood that it was a Roman story, but I didn't know that like Arachne herself didn't exist in Greek.
Yeah, I did some digging. I could not find like the only mentions of this tale are existing in Ovid.
That's crazy.
So again, it's possible this was like oral tradition. We don't have it recorded anywhere else, and Ovid was getting it, and it was a Greek story.
But this late in the game?
And it also kind of feels like we talked a lot about Isis and Osiris and Set, and those Egyptian stories that were coming from a Greek, were coming from Plutarch, right? And maybe they were also Egyptian, but they may be demonstrating something more about the Greek culture than the Egyptian. And that's the other thing to be aware of. These Roman stories, even when they're taking like the Greek tales and now they are putting Roman names on them, that's not the only thing that's getting changed. They're not just like copy, find the name, replace with Jupiter, replace with Juno. They're also going to tweak them to fit the cultural messages and ideals of Rome, right? Of course. That's what this practice is all about. It is about boosting Rome. It is about communicating ideas of Roman value and Roman beliefs, and also what they want people to believe about Rome, right? That is why we have stories. Stories are meant to communicate things. And that is done even when it's like oral tradition, even when just like one poet wrote it, but who decided to keep it and who decided to retell it and how long it's been around, like those are done with intention and care. Obviously, I'm simplifying things. That is the bare bones vibe. The gods probably all existed before they became counterparts to Greek deities, but since there was so much written about these major ones, it became pretty easy to like adopt a lot of mythos and tweak the things as needed to communicate what Roman values believed. But it's also really important to acknowledge that there were way more, quote, Roman exclusive deities than Greco-Roman ones. Yeah. It just doesn't feel that way at a glance. Because the most
prominent ones are all the Greek ones.
Yeah, because they were big and important, and these are big and important, and we're going to take your big important guys and say there actually are big important guys because we want the gods to be happy with us. Yeah. So there's just a lot to go on. There's a lot of myth. There's a lot of source material about these figures that made it easy. But there are lots of Roman gods who were worshipped that didn't have stories from Greek myth. A couple ones I wanted to cite are like Orcus, who was
Sylvanus.
Yeah, underworld deity, punished those who would break their oaths. He was similar to Pluto, but he wasn't really connected to Hades in the same way. There was Feronia, who was a goddess of wildlife, fertility, and abundance. It was she who granted freedom to slaves. She was not connected to a Greek deity. Angerona was a goddess that they adopted from the Celts. And she was said to have brought relief and pain to those experiencing, she was said to have brought relief to those experiencing pain or sorrow. She doesn't
relief
have
and pain.
my bad. She doesn't have a counterpart in the same way. In fact, very little is known about her. Like, I kind of barely scratched enough to describe her, but they know they pulled her from the Celts. And she didn't then in turn have like a Greek goddess she was also connected to.
Neat.
And then, perhaps, I think most well-known in the context of Heroes of Olympus is the war goddess Bellona. She doesn't have a Greek counterpart. She is Roman. And we'll discuss her at great length later this season. In our Bellona episode, which will come at the end of the season.
Yep.
When we get when Reyna gets her big badass hero moment. But shorter episode for sure, but I wanted to set up foundation because I think it's going to be relevant as we continue talking about these figures. So I think we could probably do an episode on Mars. We already will, because the Aries episode is no good. But even if we had done like a strong Aries episode, this tidbit of the fact that Mars was an agriculture god, I think is
enough for an episode.
Enough to justify following that transition. I'm trying to figure out how to get a Vesta episode up in here because she was so distinctly important to Rome, right? And well predated her connection to Hestia. But Rick Riordan has just apparently forgotten Hestia exists until
recently.
Most recent, until Court of the Dead. So I don't know how I'm going to figure that out. Maybe bonus episode for Darien's birthday. I don't know. But I think it also suggests that maybe having the gods have these essentially like distinct personalities is not quite the most accurate way to communicate this cultural distinction. There's overlap and there's differences, but simultaneously
they were different things.
They were different gods before these stories. So I think friend Owen could probably have a field day with the question, did Jupiter exist before he was bonded to Zeus? And what would that do to a deity? Did the Roman gods actually get subsumed into the Greek gods because of the practice of Rome, even though it feels like it should have been the other way around?
Yeah.
But if the Greek gods were still existing, still being worshipped, because Greece never fell the way Rome did. It got subsumed, Rome fell, but the whole empire didn't, right? Part of it did remain. It was just very different. And a lot of things happened over time, but I don't know. I don't know if this
It could have been an interesting plot to be, if Rick had like known this kind of stuff at the time or wants to revisit it, it would be like the actual Roman, the original god is trying to get out and subsume the Greek one this time. And so that's what's making them struggle rather than like a split personality thing.
Yeah.
And that's where you're trying to get to the point where if the Romans are managing to actually take over it, the fight between the Greek and the Roman demigods would be a little more stressful.
Yeah. I think, it was interesting to realize like a lot of like, this wasn't Rome just adopting Greek deities and giving them new names, from what I understand. And if someone who knows a lot more about this, if they know I'm very incorrect or can add more light, like please, absolutely. But it feels like the gods existed before Rome started taking these stories to be part of their stories.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting, but it was definitely it would be a more complicated concept to present to your readers.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I don't know if 12-year-olds are going to be able to fully grasp that one.
Yeah. And then there's the question of like, okay, are Jason and Talia still siblings?
Technically, yeah.
They would be. That's right. They're half, but then they'd be like half siblings.
It'd be like
And what about
3/4
Beryl
siblings.
and Jupiter? If Jupiter and Zeus are different figures, and the clash, I don't know. I think the way Rick Riordan handled it is very simple. It's very direct. It works really well for a
the story.
tight narrative without it being confusing.
100%.
But again, if the intention of what he is writing, the reason he writes these stories is to give young readers like a fundamental crash course in the mythologies, is this simplified nature perhaps
Little
doing
too
a disservice? Because I didn't realize the exact nature of it until 1:00 last night when I was doing this episode, and realized I had a fundamental misunderstanding of how this
Works.
cultural adoption had happened.
Wow.
So that's just what I thought we should discuss as we get into the proper season about Heroes of Olympus.
Yes. And we'll still be talking about some Greek things because Greek shit still happens.
Yeah, there's still stuff in there.
There's still
We
new Greek
see-
stuff. So
we
it's
need some
much
wind
like
gods.
the Heroes of Olympus. It's not only Roman stuff.
It's not. That's also true. It's not the room. But I thought this would be really fun.
Yeah, it's still good to lay like
Why
a
did this happen?
groundwork for all the other Roman
Yeah.
stuff that we do talk about eventually.
Yeah, and then I'm
And
not.
if we
then
ever
I'll have
choose
say
to
it
do a
over and over
different,
again.
yeah, if we ever choose to do like a Jupiter episode, even though we've already done Zeus, it's a Zeus. It's because we've there's enough differences there to do something with it.
Exactly. So that's up. Okay, so next episode will be us getting into the mythology proper.
Mm-hmm.
We will be back in your ears on Tuesday, July 14th, to talk about some wind spirits. Speaking of some Greek-only
Wow.
figures we encountered. But until then, don't be like Zeus.
Don't be like Zeus.
Muses of Mythology is created and hosted by Darien and DJ Smartt. It's edited by Darien Smartt. The show is produced by Darien and DJ Smartt, as well as
Tim O'Connor, The Crystal Conman, Nicholas Miller, Jeffrey Babbitt. In lasts. Our music is Athens Festival by Martin Hain.
And our cover is by Rand Kapoka. You can find them on Instagram or through the link in our show notes. Want more Muses of Mythology? Support the show on Patreon. Join the Patreon for free for access to outtakes and bloopers from our main feed episodes. Or for $5 a month, you can enjoy our Bunker 9 bonus episodes every other week. Get more at patreon.com/Muses of Mythology.
You can also support the show by leaving a review or tell a friend why you love the show.
Don't forget to check out all of our episodes and episode transcripts at musesofmythology.com.
Thanks for listening.